All right, good morning, grade nines. Today we're going to start with looking at chapter 6 and chapter 8. I'm going to divide this up into a number of PowerPoints, and I'm going to record some audio over them so you can all get a little bit of more information than just what's on the slides. So I do chapter 6 and chapter 8 together because it's really they're really closely tied together, and I found if I teach them apart, I just end up repeating myself again. Um, so we're gonna look at chapter 6 today, and it's all about economic systems. So we're going to start by just doing a bit of a discussion on what economics are and then what economic systems are. And we're going to also cover the concept of scarcity, which is a major uh, component in economics. So here we go. So the first thing we have to do is differentiate between what economics is and what an economic system is. So economics is the study of the production, distribution, and consumptions of goods and services. Goods being materials and products that people consume, and services is people who do things for other people or provide uh, some sort of an action to help society out. So that is economics, and then we have an economic system. And an economic system is the way a society organizes the production, distribution, and consumptions of goods and services. So it is the way societies try to set up their economies. Um, and economics is the study of economic systems. So you have to understand the difference between the two. Today we'll be looking at economic systems. So we have four different economic systems. The first one, which we do not really see much of, and we're not really going to talk too much about, are traditional economic systems. And they are economic decisions are based on past practices of ancestors. So this is sort of an economy or that has been passed down from generation to generation. An example of this, where there are some peoples in sub-Saharan Africa or some nomadic peoples who practice this. But like I said, it's very rare. The next three are the ones we are really going to want to concentrate on, and those are the ones that are going to be highlighted in your textbook. So, first off, we have what is called market economic system. And a market, or you might have heard it called free market, is basically another name for a capitalist system, which is decisions are based by the actions of the individual. So individuals are in charge of market economies, meaning that they decide what is being produced, they decide how it's being produced, and they decide how it's going to be distributed. So individuals decide everything. The government, there is a government, but the government is basically just there to enforce laws and make sure that people aren't taking from everyone else. So a good example of this is the United States. The United States has a pretty strong market economy where there's not many industries or businesses that the government owns and controls. All right, moving on to the next one, which is the exact opposite of a market economy, and that is a planned economy. So a planned economy is economy where the government decides everything. The government is complete control, and they run all the businesses and all the industries. Basically, everyone works for the government. They decide what the country is going to make. They decide how they're going to make it, and they're going to decide what people get and what choices they have. So a good example of this would be China. China has does participate in the free market. However, the Chinese government has basically control over everything that happens inside the country, and especially with the economy. And so those are the two sort of polar opposites. And then the final system we're going to look at is the one we're actually most interested in, is called a mixed economic system. And this is the economic system that Canada has. Is so the government and individuals have control and say over the economy. So in Canada, we have many people who own their own businesses and run their own companies. However, we also have government-run companies, and the government does get does get involved with our economy quite a bit. They put a lot of regulations to make sure that businesses aren't taking advantage of people, and they also provide a lot of social programs, which we will talk about a little bit later. So those are the four different kinds of economic systems. Like I said, the ones you want to pay closest attention to are the market, planned, and mixed economic systems. So good. So why do we have economic systems? And it all has to do with this term scarcity. So from your vocab, you should know what scarcity means, but basically what it means is that there is not enough stuff in the world to ensure that everyone has everything they want. So meaning that resources, money, things like that are all limited. We have a limited supply. So there isn't enough for everyone. So what we have to do is what economic systems try to do is they try to decide how best to deal with this problem and how best to ensure that their peoples have what they need. So, like I said, all countries deal with this problem differently, but scarcity is sort of the underlying issue that all economic systems try to deal with. So this is a very important concept. If you're still confused about it, please reach out to me, talk to me, because it is a very important concept. Um, so the economic systems of nations in today's world are simply not just market or planned, i.e., they're not perfect systems in the sense they're a completely market or a completely planned. Like I said, the United States, who is a pretty strong market economy, has some aspects of social services, and the government does still put regulations on things, very little, but they still are involved in the economy. And just like on the other side, China, in their planned economy, is that China, the government runs pretty much everything. However, they still participate in the free market, and also people are very wealthy in China and people are very poor. So you have those things where people do have some freedom in what to deal with. So they're not perfect systems, but they are the sort of best examples we're going to look at. Economic, but like I said, most economic systems are some sort of a mixed economy where the government and individuals are both involved. And like I said before, economic systems are once again just how countries try to deal with that idea of scarcity. Um, so a little bit more information about economic systems is once again, like I said, it's a set of arrangements for dealing with scarcity. And scarcity is the basic problem which affects every economy and every individual in the world. Um, and once again, we get to the other three important sort of parts of the economy, and that is land, labor, and capital. Um, and scarcity is caused by the fact there's not enough land, there's not enough labor, and there's not enough capital to meet the essential needs of every individual. Meaning, and just we're going to stop here. We're going to just make sure we know what land, labor, and capital are. And so, land is basically literally the ground you're standing on, the resources that come out of that ground. Labor is basically manpower to take that land and those resources and make something out of them. And capital is basically money, the money you get from selling the fruits of the land and the labor. So, dealing with scarcity means that every economy must make decisions about how land, labor, and capital should be used, and how these basic economic questions are answered determines which sort of economic systems will be followed. So, countries will take a look at their land, labor, and capital, decide what can be produced, how they're going to sell it, and then they develop an economic system that sort of fits around that to ensure that they are making as much money as possible, but they're also doing what is best for their citizens. So I do have a bit of a diagram which shows how scarcity is created and how the answers to the three basic economic questions lead to a philosophically different economic systems. So, like I said before, there are limited. Just you can follow my cursor. There are limited resources but there's limited resources in the world, but however, there is unlimited wants and needs. So this gives us scarcity, which then we decide we must make choices about. So we have to answer these three basic questions, and all economies and all economic systems are basically trying to come up with the answer to these questions. What will be produced? So what will we make? By who will it be produced? Who is going to make the things we are going to sell? And then finally, for whom it will be produced, meaning who are we going to sell it to? Who are the people who are going to consume our goods? So from that, all governments look at these three questions and come up with answers in that, and the results of which is going to be their economic systems. And from that, they will decide, for example, if we look at a centrally planned economy, which is the government owns everything, is the government is going to decide what is being produced. They will decide who is actually going to work in the factories and what their role in those factories are going to be, and they will make the decision finally on where they're going to, who's going to get all the finished products. So that is the basics of an economic system. I really like this diagram. It is a very good one, and I think if you follow it, it makes a pretty simplistic case for the different economic systems and sort of how they come to those economic systems. So that is the end of this sort of first PowerPoint. Feel free to rewind the video or the PowerPoint, and also the slides are up on Brightspace as well. So if you have any questions, reach out to me and I will answer them, and I will make sure that you are getting this. So I hope you guys are having a good day, and I will talk to you later.